to No Ideas Original Sports. I'm Kenyatta here with Reem and Theo. How you guys doing?
All is well, bro.
Doing good.
How was the week, man? Everything good?
Can't complain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of rest, man. A lot of rest for the body, man.
yeah. We over here Memorial Day weekend in a rain out, complete rain out. Yeah, 3 straight days of rain. Maybe tomorrow we get a little bit of something. I don't know if it's gonna be sunny, but maybe we'll get out of the rain.
Right, right.
So, guys, we in the middle of the NBA playoffs. There's a lot to talk about that. Different things going on. But I think we should start with the hometown teams because I know everybody was jumping at that one. I mean, the Knicks worked hard to become the fourth seed, to get the home court advantage and stuff like that. But now it just seems like, at least to me, it seems like the moment might be too big for some of these guys. I think Derrick Rose, a guy who's been in the Eastern Conference Finals and stuff. He's doing what he does. None of this stuff is too big for him, but it seems like it might be a little big for Randall and a little big for RJ. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. A little disappointed in Randall, RJ as well, but Randall especially. This is a guy who averaged. Granted, they're playing him differently, right? Because it's playoff time. They're focused in. They're locked in on him. But this is a guy who averaged 30-something points against the Hawks in the regular season. And this guy, he can't even make a layup now. It's crazy. So I think from my perspective, I think he's kind of sort of playing his way out of a max deal. I still think he deserves a good deal. I would give him a raise over the $20 million he's getting now. But max, I don't know if I could commit to him after this performance. Especially if they do it this summer, then maybe the max because it's a little better. If they wait till next summer, there's no way he's getting like a super max or whatever it is. I wouldn't even consider it. But the team as a whole is down. RJ kind of getting exposed a little bit that he can't really create his own shot. And you got Bullock, who I like defensively, and he can knock down the three. But I feel like we just have too many guys who can't create their own shot. So you have Bullock who can't, RJ struggling to create his own. Randall can kind of sort of create his own, but he's a bit sloppy with the ball. Nerlens Noel, he's no offense. He's a good rim protector, no offense there. Occasional lob here and there. But yeah, I think, and even their bench, like you mentioned, Kenyatta, Derrick Rose, the moment is not too big for him. He's playing better than he's played all year. So he's stepping up, which is, I kind of expect him to, I don't know about at this level, averaging 20-something points, but I kind of expected Rose to be solid. I think Gibson is somewhat solid. Again, he's a veteran, so I don't think the moment is too big for him. But yeah, I'm definitely, I don't know. To me, team is kind of getting exposed a little bit, and I think the organization has a lot of evaluation to do to see who stays and who goes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a disappointment being a Knicks fan as far as Randall's concerned. Had a great year. He's a multiple player award winner. But yeah, listen, difference between a postseason and regular season. Team make adjustments, and what we've seen now is the Atlanta Hawks making some very positive adjustments as far as defending Randall, and it's kind of exposing Randall where he can do offensively. His handle is not really strong enough to get create for others. He's always doing the ball out of bounds or kicking the ball or falling or trying to dribble the ball or trying to create. At the same time, just give Atlanta credit because Atlanta Hawks not the same team it was during the season. Got the same players like DeAndre Hunter, who missed the majority of the season. He's back. Gallinari missed most of the season. He's back. They didn't have Lou Williams to late in the season as far as trade concerned. And Bogdanovich always been a big time shooter when healthy. So the team they played during the season is not the same team they're playing right now. So that's what it is. You see the four being spread out with shooters for Trae Young. And Trae Young right now is doing a very good Steph Curry impersonation right now. So with that being said, Atlanta Hawks is not the same team as it was during regular season based on adding new players or based on adding players who are healthy now, contributing.
And you know what? I think, Theo, you're right, because when you mentioned the guys that the Hawks have, Kareem, you mentioned Taj Gibson, another guy who's not afraid of the moment. Alec Burks, a guy from Utah who's been in the been in the playoffs. But Theo, the guys you mentioned, those guys all been in the playoffs. Every single person from Capella. The only people that haven't really been, Gallinari. These guys are playoff tested guys. Lou Williams. So they've all been battle tested or something. I mean, the only people that really haven't is Trey Young and John Collins. That's then Hunter. That's in their rotation. But everybody else in the rotation have been in the playoffs and deep into the playoffs.
I think Bogdanovich, this may be his first
Yeah,
go.
this might be his first too. But they have a lot of players in the rotation that have been in the playoffs and been fairly deep in the playoffs. A lot of good veterans there. So I think that helps. And even though some of these guys they was him, I think like Theo said, you got to give the Hawks some credit for what they're doing. But I think that with the Knicks, you guys been saying it all year, they do need a point guard. They need a real guy to bring the ball up, to put these guys in position to score, because when they can't create their own shots, somebody's got to get them the ball or position where maybe it's one or two dribbles away, or something where it's a shot that'll help them out. So that's something they'll probably look at. But to Theo's question, I think right now Derrick Rose is the best player on the team right now. That's undoubted.
The one thing too, in regards to the point guard, because I know I was high on them originally bringing in Lonzo, but after watching this, I'm a little concerned about bringing in Lonzo in terms of, like, if they're gonna bring in Lonzo and he decides to be aggressive, then I'm excited about that. But they don't need Lonzo out there trying to be the ultimate role player. You pay him $20 million. And I think Trae Young is, which we already, as Knicks fans, of course, we've been knew this. That's why we've been screaming for a point guard for all these years. You need, in today's NBA, you need an attacking point guard. You need a point guard who can get into the paint, draw the defense in, and then you need shooters around them. That's the formula. Granted, it's not that, it sounds easier said than done, right? To get that point guard, right? Because not everybody's Trae Young. Where was Atlanta before they brought in Trae Young, right?
Yeah.
But we need that attacking point guard. So if we bring in a guy like Lonzo, he's got to be aggressive if he gets into the paint, because I do think he can break a defense down. But is he going to break the defense down and immediately look to kick it out and stuff like that? We need him looking to score, which is why you heard the rumors about the Knicks being so interested in Damian Lillard, and that's the type of guy you need. Like, you don't necessarily need a guy out there in today's NBA looking to average 10 assists per game.
It's funny. If I'm the Knicks, I might even take a chance on this guy. I think he's in the last year of his deal. So if you don't want Lonzo, maybe New Orleans will give you like a pick or something attached to Eric Bledsoe, because they've been trying to get rid of him. And Bledsoe, he's not the ideal shooter, but he defends and gets to the basket. He'll definitely look at the score if you let him. He's definitely not going to back down to anybody.
I like Lonzo. It's just I want him to basically be LaMelo, essentially, right? Yeah. LaMelo came into the league, and he's aggressive. Granted, he has a different type of game. He's always been a bit more of a scorer, I would say, than Lonzo. But Lonzo, I think, has it in him to attack. I don't know if it's because he just came into the league, right, and immediately was put in that passive role, right, with LeBron and that team over there in LA. Now with Zion Williamson, they toyed with having Zion running the point and all that. So I'm sure that kind of affected Lonzo's game. But I like Lonzo. I just think if we bring him in, especially at the price tag he's going to be asking for, we need him to be an aggressive Lonzo, not just bring the ball up, throw it to the corner, throw it to Randall, let's say, on the wing, and then go stand in the corner. I also think Schroeder is a good possibility. Now I'm seeing rumors pop up about Colin Sexton maybe in a trade. I think he's an attacking point guard, so he would be, fill a need.
I heard the Bulls were even considering possibly trading Kobe White.
Yeah, he's another guy who I wouldn't mind bringing in, because he can be aggressive. He can get into the paint and attack. Derrick Rose can do that, as we've seen, but I wouldn't mortgage the future. I wouldn't rely on Derrick Rose, and not even from a skill standpoint. We know what he could do from a skill standpoint, even at this age. But can you rely on him to stay healthy, playing 30-something minutes a game again?
I don't think you could do it for necessarily a full season doing that. That's where I think the problem comes in with Derrick Rose.
And then Quickly, I like Quickly, but Quickly is definitely more of a two guard. He's a combo guard, but he's not the type of guy who you want to have running the offense per se. Maybe in spurts here and there, I think he can grow into that type of role. But the one thing I do like about Quickly that he has in him is that aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Quickly's not playing well in this series. Well, he's hardly playing, but the minutes he is playing, he's not playing well. But he doesn't necessarily look scared out there to me.
No,
He's just missing shots, you know?
I think that's one of the interesting things about playing for Kentucky. I don't think any Kentucky players are scared because they were the top players at their schools, the top players in college. So they've been probably in more environments. Some of those guys, it's sad to say, have probably played in bigger moments than some of these guys in the NBA. If you look at it, there's some interesting people out there for the Knicks, though, just talking to them because, TJ Warren's a free agent.
Yeah, he played well in the bubble, right? He was like the bubble MVP or something like that. Then, unfortunately, he came out and got hurt.
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting to see what he was going to do this season, whether he could have a big follow-up to his bubble performance. So it was unfortunate. But for a team like the Knicks, if they are interested in somebody like him, you may be able to get him for cheaper than you would have, right, due to the injury or whatever the case may be. I know Oladipo's name originally floated around in that. Now Oladipo potentially may miss next season because they were saying the doctors who did his most recent surgery were saying they don't even know how he was playing because the tendon was still torn.
Yeah.
So Oladipo may be out, but I would stay away from him.
I'm gonna throw a name out there. You guys may not like it, but I really think this guy's got still some tread left. And if you look at the season he played, he didn't have a bad season. If they could work the salary in, or it's a few years or what's left, John Wall. John Wall was probably yeah.
You know what? At this point, I may be willing to take a flyer on him because he kind of sort of minus the jump shot, right? John Wall's jump shot is a little suspect, but what's going on right now with the Knicks in terms of not having anybody to really create their own and get it.
That wouldn't have happened,
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened. Trae Young would have to defend. Because now they're basically hiding Trae Young on Reggie Bullock, right?
Yeah.
Bullock can only shoot, if you give him the ball in the right positions. Even for a guy like that, I don't think Bullock moves around enough in terms of like off screens and stuff like that. Occasionally he does, but I don't think he does it enough. So Trae Young is just pretty much resting while Bullock is sitting in the corner. That's why I keep saying the Knicks need to go to a lineup where I get Bullock is he's a pretty good defender, I'll say. I don't know about great, but he's a solid defender. But I think the Knicks at this point need to go with their shooters, their scorers, and try to just outscore them. Put Quickly in there, right? Put some guys, put Burke, Quickly, RJ, put these guys in. That way Trae Young is going to have to defend. Right now he's sitting in the corner defending Bullock, resting, and then coming up and down on the offensive end doing whatever he wants. With a guy like Trae Young, you got to make him work on defense and get physical with him.
Yeah.
Another thing I would like to see the Knicks do in this series is put Randall, instead of using Randall in that point forward position, put him in the post. Let Randall post up a little bit. Because him trying to create, like Theo mentioned earlier, he's losing the ball off his foot, he's slipping, he's falling, throwing passes out of bounds. Put him on the block and see what he can do. I think he has a decent post-up game down there, Randall. Yeah. More than likely it's going to result in one of those fadeaways, but he's going to do that anyway. So put him down there and see what he could do. Let him try to draw fouls.
Well, I will say this much so far as the series continues. It doesn't really matter which foul is on the court. You got to make shots. So you have your own scoring squad or defensive squad or mix and match. The Knicks is getting good looks from game 1 to game 4, and nobody making shots but Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
You can take Burke game 1, of course, but the problem with Burke is that when Burke get hot, his shot selection becomes very, very suspect. I bet he becomes more selfish and takes a lot of bad shots when he gets hot. But the Knicks as a whole is not making no shot. And he's getting good looks, man. RJ getting good looks, bullocks. Randall's getting good looks. They ain't got Derrick Rose making his shots, but everybody else is missing, and they're all getting good quality looks at the basket, and none of them is making shots. So it doesn't really matter. So it depends on these guys getting hot. So eventually, I mean, after 4 games, we gotta get hot eventually, right? So I'm assuming you can't go 5 straight games without making no jump shots. But as far as point guard concerned, I don't know. I think Derrick Rose can play the point guard. Just limit his minutes if you have a good quality backup point guard. All this having Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball is not a scorer. He's a facilitator. You can't make the buy what they not. And Lonzo Ball is not a scorer. He's a suspect shooter for 3-point range. He got a little bit better though, but he's still a guy you let him shoot threes before allow him to drive and penetrate and just show off to somebody else. But I will stick for Rose for now. Depending who's out there. If Lillard's there, it depends. But listen, if we had Lillard right now, we would still lose. You know why? Because nobody else is making shots.
Yeah.
Portland is making shots. Carmelo, CJ, those guys making shots out there in Portland.
Yeah.
We're not none at all. Nobody.
But you know what? I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that these guys are like they're trying to do too much. Granted, if let's say you take Trae Young and you put him on the Knicks and you put Elfrid Payton on the Hawks, Trae Young makes the game so much easier for these guys. Bogdanovich is hitting wide open threes. It's not like, he's contested, right? DeAndre Hunter, he's not really creating shots for himself. He's just hitting shots that are wide open. So when you got a guy like that, these guys make the game so much easier. And
right.
Has Capella caught anything besides a lob this series? I don't know if he's scored on anything besides a lob. He's not shooting anything outside of the paint.
Right. Well, Capella is playing like Mutombo right now.
Even, you know what? It doesn't even have to come from the point guard position because if you look at Phoenix, they have that in Booker, right? Booker is able to break down the defense so much. And the same thing with CP3. But using Booker as an example, he gets into the paint and he's able to create shots that now you got to collapse on him. And that's when you see Jay Crowder hitting these threes, right? That's when you see the other guy the small forward. What's this guy, the long, lanky guy?
Cam Johnson.
Him, the guy who
Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, Bridges, right? Who the Knicks probably should have drafted over Knox, right? But he's hitting these corner threes, and the Knicks don't really have anybody like that, and that's why, like, to collapse the defense, and that's why these guys are struggling. I would say, think about it. I would say Kevin Knox would be a lot better if he was playing with a guy like Trae Young. He would be able to sit in that corner, right? And just because that's one thing Kevin Knox can do. He could hit open shots.
Yeah.
Just that the Knicks can't get him open, right? He can't create for himself, and there's nobody who could collapse the defense to get him a shot.
I will tell you this: as crazy as it sounds, do you know who the Knicks should consider? Forget about Burks and Bullocks. They should consider bringing back Tim Hardaway, because I guarantee you, Tim Hardaway would get his shots up, and he would make shots.
If I'm him, I would stay away from it. Granted,
you would stay away.
You can't go back to the same team 3 times. That's like the definition of insanity.
Each time he's been here, he's performed. That's the part that's crazy. It's like he doesn't come here not to perform. They just get rid of him. But he's performed.
I always liked Tim Hardaway. I could understand why they got rid of him the last time, right? Star chasing the salary cap, whatever else. The first time I didn't, right, understand why they got rid of him. They just sent them over to the Hawks. Who did they get for him? I don't even know who they got for him when they sent them over to the Hawks.
But there's a lot of the type of players we're talking about. The Knicks got to just look young. Like, look at some of these young guys, because there's guys on people's benches, like even like with some guys that step in doing all right. Like everybody, Jaylen Brown's not in for the Celtics and stuff, and different guys there. But this Romeo Langford dude from Indiana,
he could create. He could create shots for him. We need guys who could create a shot.
Mm-hmm.
You look at right now, I'm looking at Phoenix, and I'm like, man, I wish we had Cameron Payne.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
At the very least, he could get into the paint.
Oh
He
yeah,
ain't
yeah. He
great,
touches
but
the
he could
paint.
create a shot for himself. I'm looking
Yeah.
at Jalen Brunson from the Mavericks. These guys can at least create.
These guys that look at
And that's a segue into the Nets, right? The Nets just so
Yep.
happen to have three of them, right?
yeah.
Or more. You got Harden, Kyrie, and Durant. You could give them
Yeah.
the ball and let them create.
Well, worst comes to worst. If they can't get a shot on these plays, they can always get a shot. They can get any shot they want, basically.
And they're going to get shots for their teammates. You know,
I mean-
you don't need a whole team of playmakers, but you need at least minimum 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then surrounding those guys, you need shooters, like decent shooters, and then you need basically a guy. Forget the center in today's NBA just needs to be an enforcer down there. Block shots and make sure you secure the rebound.
Yeah.
Catch an occasional lob when the playmaker breaks down the defense. That's all you need a center for these days.
Yeah.
Outside of that, you need guys who could create shots, get into the paint, and when they do, if they don't lay the ball up or throw the lob to the center we just talked about, they spray it out to the shooters. Until the Knicks find that particular playmaker, we're going to continue to struggle. I will say, with all of that said, this has been a successful season for the Knicks.
Yeah. I think looking at the Knicks and Nets, I think part of that is management philosophy has to change because, like the game, like I think one of the things that I've always seen with the Knicks is that they haven't really begun to understand that the game has changed. So they're still trying to play more of a traditional game, whereas everybody is doing exactly what you just said. Getting guys that are quick and fast that can get to the rim or whatever and kicking out to guys that can shoot. Because that whole analytics thing is to shoot threes and get to the basket. The in-between game is reserved for superstars.
And we should have predicted Randall would struggle because Randall made a living off of long twos this season.
Yeah.
He shot well from 3, but his living was those fadeaways. That's not sustainable. Once teams tighten up those fadeaways, that's a tough way to make a living.
Yeah.
Do you guys think the Knicks miss Austin Rivers?
I think so to some degree because he's a guy who could actually do what we just said.
Yeah.
He's the guy that was born for us until he got caught in Tibbs' so-called numbers games for no damn reason.
Yeah, you're right.
It happened. That's the truth.
Yeah, right. I agree. He's a guy who could create his own shot off the dribble, get into the paint, and knock down an occasional 3.
Yeah.
He was born for us until Tibbs put him in his numbers game, got caught up, and started getting DMPs for no damn reason.
It should have been. We knew once Rose came in that somebody's minutes was going to get cut, and it shouldn't have been Rivers. It should have been Payton's, in my opinion, right away. You should have just benched Payton or traded him, released him, same way they did Rivers.
Well,
Just ride it out that way.
look at what teams are doing.
He signed Rivers before we signed Payton.
Yeah.
For when
Yeah.
first place.
Yeah, we shouldn't even brought Peyton back, to be honest with you. When the season ended, I was excited thinking that this was Peyton's last, his first and only season with the team. And it's not that Peyton is horrible. I think he does have a place in the league, but he adds to the problems the Knicks have.
He's not, put it this way, he's part of the NBA that's not the going forward part. Like a lot of people will say, like, don't get me wrong, he's a serviceable guy. He should be on the team. He should be a backup. He's good for 15 minutes or something here and there. But I give you a perfect example. Look what Orlando did. They got rid of Evan Fournier. You know why? Because they want to put Cole Anthony and what was his name, Markelle Fultz in the backcourt. Now, right now, if the Knicks were playing those guys, could they contend with those two guys in the backcourt? I mean, a lot of teams look at what the Nets look what the Nets did. Look at Caris LeVert. Caris LeVert gets his own shot, touches the paint, gets other people's shots, and able to score anytime he wants to. Those are the type of guys, like even a guy like RJ. If I was RJ, I wouldn't be looking at some of these other guys. I'd be looking at what Caris LeVert did. Try to turn yourself to a player like that. But
Well, RJ should be looking at. I think I think RJ has done a decent job addressing the jump shot concerns. Obviously, there's still room for improvement with everybody on their jump shot, but I think he's done a decent enough job addressing that. His next thing that he needs to address is his ball handling.
So
You know, because we need him to be one of those playmakers. Randall, I think, needs to address his ball handling too. But as a big, I don't know how much better he's going to get at his size. I think for his size, he's decent enough with the ball in his hands. I just think the ball is in his hands too much in that role.
So I got a question for you guys as Knicks fans, and I know this guy would help you guys if you had him right now. Could the Knicks use a guy like DeMar DeRozan?
Yeah.
I think yes and no, because he's a guy who he can create his own shot. I give him that. He's going to draw fouls.
Too.
Yeah, he's going to draw fouls. The only concerns I have with him is on this particular Knicks team is the spacing.
He's not a three.
Yeah, he doesn't shoot from outside. So here it is. You got another guy who's going to be clogging the paint, so to speak. If those other guys were jump shooters, then yeah, DeRozan would be a guy you know can add value basically to your team. But you gotta have some shooters around them. And I don't know if the Knicks have enough of those either. Granted, the Knicks were up there in 3-point percentage, but I think some of that was a bit of a fluke too, as we're seeing now in this series. You know.
Well, just going through the other teams, like I was looking at the Knicks, looking at the Nets in Boston, and yeah, I mean I think it was great that Boston won a game and Tatum played the game of his career, but I think more so those other games and what's happening tonight is reflective of what the series actually is. Like they getting hammered right now, 118-93. So I think they'll pretty much be done in 5 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think they, like you said, they won their one game. You know, probably wasn't even supposed to get that, but Tatum played out of his mind. I think they would have been a little better. They probably still would have only got one game if Jaylen Brown was there. But I think they have two players to build around in Tatum and Brown. Yeah. Now you got to figure out what you're going to do in terms of bigs, right? Because Tristan Thompson isn't the answer because he doesn't do any of the things he rebounds. I'll give him that. Yeah. But he's not a lob threat. You need a rebounder and a lob threat, I would say, as a big. And I don't think he's a lob threat, really.
No, not a shot blocker either.
Some of those other, that too, right? He's not really a shot blocker. He's a decent rebounder, especially on the offensive glass. But I think they need Boston. I think they need a big. I would say they got to find some way probably to see if they can unload Kemba. Because Kemba, unfortunately, and Theo mentioned it before, his better days may be behind him.
I mean,
mostly due to injury.
If I thought he was going to be healthy, I think he would be perfect for the Knicks.
He's exactly what they need if he's healthy.
Yeah, if he's healthy, he's perfect for them. And then look, the Nets are going to be the Nets. They like Theo always mentioned the concern. And when they have defensive lapses, they'll have trouble. But when they come together and they play defense, they'll do well. They pretty much are never out of any game because they can score at will. So we won't know who the Nets actually are until they get some more games under their belt.
Right? Until they get tested. Yeah. Right now, this isn't a test. This is like a warm up.
Yeah.
Until they get tested. And I don't think that test is going to come until they potentially meet, let's say, like the Sixers or somebody like that. Yeah. Then they'll get tested because the Sixers' strength, which is Embiid, the center, is the Nets' weakness. And so then they may get tested a little bit, but it's still going to be tough to contend with that scoring from that team.
I will tell you this: just looking at the I'm glad you brought up the Sixers. I mean, they beat Washington. I don't know. It wasn't really that impressive to me. Washington took that game. Philly came in and they beat them, but I think if Washington was in full health, Bradley Beal was in full health, and they had some of their players, they would have made that a much tougher series. Whatever. And I think looking at it, I mean, they got some issues too because as much as people love, I love this guy's defense. On offense, he's a liability. What's
Simmons.
Yeah, Simmons did not help them at all because in the regular season they let you do that breaking away. He gets those breakaway moves and penetrate, but in the playoffs you're not getting a lot of those. So I think he was getting maybe 12 or 10 or something, and having problems with Beatrins and guys like that.
Yeah, he's not Simmons at this point. I think it's obvious that Simmons isn't a scorer. As much as we want him to be, coming being the number one pick and everything else, he's just not a scorer. He's like the ultimate. I would say he's still a star, but the way he plays is kind of like the ultimate role player, where he's a triple-double threat every night. Right, he's one of those get you 10 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Probably one of the best defenders in the league, I'd say, all defensive player. But yeah, he just can't score, and eventually that may come back to be Philly's downfall, because Embiid can only do so much on the scoring end. I do think Tobias Harris will give him some scoring. He can get you 20 a night.
Yeah.
But at some point, you're going to need a third wheel. And right now, I think they go that third wheel is kind of like by committee. Yeah. One guy gets hot today. Shake Milton may get 16, 17. Seth Curry may go for 18. But when you play against these tough teams, these top teams, that kind of, I don't know, can Seth Curry and Shake Milton be relied upon to get 18, 20 points occasionally against the Nets? I don't know. And Ben Simmons, I don't think he's not going to get you that 18, 20 points on a nightly basis.
No, and I don't think Ben Simmons puts any fear in the KD or any of those guys. I don't think they particularly care about that.
Yeah, you can rest on defense against them pretty much. You lay back because he's not aggressive enough. And it's that jump shot too. He's got to work on that jump shot.
I think Ben Simmons plays to the level of his opponent. I think he's a matchup nightmare, honestly. You could play him in the post. You sure he could score in the post depending on the matchups. He could get to the basket. The guy is 6'8", 6'9", so anybody gonna stop him going to the rim, depending on the matchups. If Ben can work his jump shot, he's proven that he can make a jump shot here and there, but ain't consistent enough. But I think he could contribute in many ways besides defense. He could create for others. He has good court vision. He's a good passer. He's a very good finisher. He'll throw on your head in a minute. He'll get it twisted. So I think people always want jump shot could be being dead horse, so to speak. I think that he had other skill sets to help team out as far as winning games and advance into the playoffs. Honestly,
you know what? I think I think Ben Simmons he's a product of being on the wrong team too, in terms of his skill sets. When you have Embiid down there clogging it up, right, the paint that is, then that kind of goes against Ben Simmons' strengths. Like you just said, Ben Simmons is not going to ever become a 3-point shooter. It's just not. That's not who he is. He's more of a Giannis type of guy, right? Who you got to give him shooters, right? You spread the court, give him shooters, right. And then Ben Simmons, he could average 18 in a situation like that, because now with those shooters, you have to defend them basically, right? Look at Giannis. Giannis is laying down the blueprint for that type of team. It's just that Ben Simmons doesn't have that, because you have the ball going down low in the post to Joel, because think about it, at one point they tried the other way around, right? Where they kind of had Joel out on the 3-point line trying to play that spread 5, and he hated it, right? He was constantly complaining about it. And that was playing to Ben Simmons' strengths. Ben Simmons was getting around 17, 18 points under that type of offensive system. But now they go back to the Joel Embiid, we want to put you on the block, which is hard to argue against. It is just, in that scenario, it hurts Ben Simmons' game. His strengths is penetrating to the basket, creating for others, and like Theo just said, finishing. He could definitely finish.
I think you made a good point, a good comparison with Giannis and Simmons, but I think guys like Giannis actually hurt Simmons. Let me tell you why. Because Giannis is a perfect example. Like he is the perfect example of a guy who can't shoot that has all the physical gifts. I don't think if Ben Simmons was as athletic as Giannis or as strong, you could probably get away with it more. So when you see a guy like Giannis go out there and get 28 points a game and fill it up, it kind of detracts away from a guy like Ben Simmons who's playing a similar type of game. I will
Right.
tell you this: Milwaukee got smarter. They went out and got those shooters we were talking about, and that's helped a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know how they Brent Forbes was hitting so many threes.
yeah, they built the team. They built the team around Giannis's strengths. Giannis, they realized early on, Giannis is never gonna be a 3-point shooter. The guy can get to the hole pretty much at will, unless you start trying to build that wall against him.
Wall, yeah,
But even now, when you build the wall, he's got the shooters, right?
yep,
So if Philly wanted to make Ben Simmons the focal point of the team, they would have to do something similar where you can't have Joel on the paint as Simmons is trying to penetrate. Where is he penetrating to? You know?
I do think down the road one of those guys will have to go if they don't win a championship.
Well, Philly is smart right now because Philly went back to having Embiid in the post. And, what Philly also did was having Doc Rivers, too, as the coach, speaks volumes, too. Doc Rivers is a champion, well respected. So we have him as a coach. You got to respect his resume. And having him as a head coach, having Embiid back in the blocks, put Embiid in MVP discussions. Yeah, Ben Simmons might be Defensive Player of the Year. You guys have home court advantage throughout the damn playoffs, no matter who you play outside the West Coast. And you find guys got some players who could contribute with Tobias Harris, Benez, Seth Curry, and Danny Green. So I think I give Doc Rivers some credit as a coach, man. So listen, guys, we're better off playing this way. Having Embiid, I know you can shoot threes, but we need you in the post. I give you 3 shots per game for 3-point line to satisfy your personal preference. But that being said, we're a good team. If we're a good team, if we shoot jump shots, we could be a great team and a chip team if we're in the post.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. You got to give, like you said, you got to give Doc Rivers some credit there because Joel Embiid, one of the knocks on him was you don't know who you're going to get from night to night or something. And with Doc Rivers there, he's an MVP candidate. So you got to give Doc Rivers his credit for that, for putting Embiid in the best situations and getting him to be consistent and work all the time. So you got to give him that.
The other thing I wonder is it's hard to argue with the result, like Theo said, because they've been successful. But I wonder what happens if they don't win the championship or at least make the finals. If I'm Ben Simmons, I'm sitting around saying, wait a minute, I kind of adhered to this formula because it was working. We didn't reach our ultimate goal. I'm too good to be a role player, right? I don't think Ben Simmons is going to want to stick with this role, but for too many seasons, unless they win, right? If they win a championship, it's hard for Ben Simmons to say anything.
Yeah.
But eventually he's going to want one of those Giannis type of setups, right? Where the team is just flat out his and built around his strengths if they don't win with this formula. So I think, like Kenyatta said, eventually, if they don't win, they're going to have to make a decision on who they choose between those two. And I think right now they would choose Embiid.
Okay. Well, we're talking about Giannis and the Bucks. I mean, I was a little disappointed in Miami. I don't know how you guys felt about it. I mean, I don't even think those guys were competitive. I mean, can you bring that team back as constructed? I mean, I don't even think if they had Victor Oladipo, it wouldn't have made any difference at all. None.
Yeah, I seen some memes where people were calling them bubble guppies, saying they only play well in the bubble, and I think that's a good point. Tyler Hero's regressed a lot. I don't know what's going on with him. The rumors is that he's down there and on South Beach just hanging out, more focused on more focused on everything but performing on the court. Supposedly, I think. Adebayo got exposed a little bit. I still think he's good. I think he's a star player, or at least a star in the making, but he got exposed a little bit in this series that he's not on the level they thought he was yet. Jimmy Butler kind of disappointed me because I know we talked before, and I had Jimmy Butler as one of my superstars and potential MVP candidates based on his bubble performance last year. So I kind of was expecting him to step up, and he's another one of those guys who kind of like fell into that I'm trying to be the ultimate role player type of thing, and I don't know what was going on with him where he just was like way too passive. Yeah, that team, I don't know what they could have done to make any difference. And the crazy thing with that team is I don't know what they do moving forward either. Duncan Robinson's a free agent. I don't know if I would bring him back, especially for the money that he's going to be asking for, because I don't think he's going to be a difference maker for him. Adebayo is a good piece. I would say keep him around. Jimmy Butler, I think he adds a lot to that team in terms of the toughness and everything else. But looking at the way he was just too passive, I would say bring him back. But somebody's got to get in his ear and tell him to be more aggressive. Do you try to leverage Tyler Hero for like a third quote unquote star? Does somebody take the bait on Tyler Hero, right, and give you a potential star for him, right, an older player? I mean, to pair with Butler and Adebayo, or I don't know what you do if you're that Miami Heat team at this point.
I think it's tough with them because the way I see it is that we like Butler, but even they have floated rumors around down there that there was some trouble with him and the staff. I don't know if that's true or not, but Butler, you have to have a certain type of personality player to play with him. And I don't know if he can fit in on every single team that's out there. You know, he didn't fit in Minnesota. Joel Embiid loved him, but Ben Simmons hated him. So it's one of those things where he fits in some places doesn't. So I don't know how many teams will be willing. If you trade for Jimmy Butler, you're saying that this is Jimmy Butler's team. I don't think he's a trademan. He fits in with a group type of guy. Only people that I can see him fitting in, it's two teams he could do that with. It would have to be the Lakers or Brooklyn, because that's the only teams where he would respect the players that, the players around him to say those guys are better than him.
I think
he's not gonna act crazy with LeBron or KD or those guys.
What about the Knicks? I think I don't know about the players per se, but I think he respects Tibbs enough not to. Right? They got a great relationship from my understanding. So I would think he would be a decent fit with the Knicks in terms of that. If I'm the Knicks, though, because given that money that Jimmy Butler's making, do you blow a lot of that cap space on bringing Jimmy Butler in?
Well, I would consider it, because the thing that I could see them wanting is first of all, if you bring in Butler, they're going to want RJ. RJ and Quigley would automatically be going to Miami because they would have to be in a deal, and they might ask for Mitchell Robinson too.
It's too much. Yeah,
they would try to give you something back like Butler, and you probably would get like Kendrick Nunn or something like that, just because they want to offload something to try to make it right. Whatever, but they will want Mitchell Robinson, and it'll at least be Mitchell Robinson and Barrett. Because every deal, if you look at teams, you got to start with Barrett, because he at least you can tell that he has some upside, some potential. Even if he can't be a number one option, we know that Barrett can be a number three option. We know that, and Mitchell Robinson would be a rim protector. You could move Bam to the power forward, so it would do some things to help their team out, bring him. The money's different. You could sign Robinson back. So there's some different things there. So, I mean, I would consider it if I was the Knicks. It's something worth considering. I don't know.
Miami, I would probably pull a trigger, because I think Miami at this point, to me, now that I think about it, I think Miami is one of those teams that probably need to go with a full rebuild at this point.
Yeah, I think they need to break that up too. But I think, like you said, Jimmy Butler's going to be hard to move with that contract, and you got to keep Bam. Where you go from there, wherever you go. But that's kind of the thing.
Outside of Bam, though, because we all thought Tyler Hero would be one of those pieces based on the bubble performance, but now he's scaring me. I don't think he's bad. I think he still has a lot of potential, but it just was a bad season for him.
It would be Duncan Robinson. I would keep him. I would keep Bam and Duncan Robinson because Duncan Robinson fits in mostly into the new NBA. He's not the greatest defender, but he shoots what 44% from 3-point range or something like that. So if you could get a point guard that can get into the paint, he'll knock
Yeah,
down threes all the time. So you
that's what
gotta,
you need at that point. You got to get a creator, a shot creator,
yeah.
to give him
So
that space.
it would probably be him. He would probably be the guy to keep. I mean, looking at the teams and stuff and everything, I'm a little unhappy about the Phoenix and the Lakers series. Not that I don't think that the Lakers would have won. I would have liked to see a healthy Chris Paul because I think that first game was kind of indicative of like Paul's competitiveness. But without Chris Paul, he's kind of the heart and soul of that team. So I don't think it's competitive. What I didn't like is what like anything else as being a player at heart is Schroeder wasn't saying anything when Chris Paul was there. Don't wait till Chris Paul's out of the game to start talking trash.
But now you look, it kind of even out a little bit with Anthony. I started to call him Anthony Charmin because he's playing soft. You know, he's a guy's always hurt. Anthony Davis, because now he's out, right, or potentially out day to day, right? Didn't he pull something in his groin or something? You know, it's always something with Anthony Davis, and it's unfortunate because the guy is a superstar, but he just can't stay healthy. So now I actually think with him being out, I think even with Chris Paul being a little injured, I think it may have swung back in Phoenix's favor with assuming Anthony Davis isn't Anthony Davis. Because look at today's game, right?
I want to go back for a minute with that Miami Heat series real quick.
Okay.
Been getting away with having Bam playing center long enough, and that's what's going on. Bam is a power forward, always was.
Yeah.
So for the last year or two, he's been playing center. He's a power forward. He got exposed because he's not a center; he's a power forward.
Yeah.
So find a big man where he could play power forward and work his jump shot. He has a jump shot. He can shoot the baseline jump shot. So it has gotten better. So
Yeah.
He need to work on having him playing power forward. And as far as the series concerned with the Bucks, honestly, the Bucks have the three best players on the court.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler is the fourth best player on the court.
Yeah, between Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's what it is. Bucks is just a better team from 1 to 12, 1 to 15. And that's it. It's hard being a team when they have the two best players on the court, let alone the three best players on the court every time. You know, the Bucks when it comes to playing the Heat. Well, Lakers concerned, if Chris Paul injury, you know, is big, man. I mean, he played today. They won today. Moving forward, now with AD hurt, you know, series probably changed for the favor of Phoenix. 2-2 going back to Arizona, man. Right now, AD is questionable right now. So even if CP3 was healthy, he still could beat LA with a healthy AD. You know, so now it's more evenly scaled, evenly matched. You got one star who's hurt. We have one star who's hurt.
Yep.
Yeah, I think with Phoenix, like assuming they were able to get by the Lakers, the CP3 injury may have dampened their potential, you know, long run in the postseason, potentially, depending on how many games off or rest and everything else. That's if they get by the Lakers. But the first thing I thought when I seen it is I said, here we go again with CP3, right? And it's not that he's doing anything. It's just unfortunate that every time he gets to the playoffs, it's an injury, right?
Yeah.
One season with the Clippers, it was like a fractured hand or something like that. Then, of course, we know the infamous groin pull or hamstring pull, right? Where in Houston, they always say they were one hamstring away from making the finals, right? And then here we go again. So CP3, you know, he'll get you there to the playoffs, right? But then, unfortunately, he just continues to get hurt when you need him most, it seems like.
Yeah. So watching this Clippers Mavericks thing, I mean, I gotta say this. I can't really like a lot of people like knocking him, but I can't say that Paul George is the issue here. I really can't say that they can't really put it on him this year and say Paul George is the reason that it's not working. I mean,
Right.
they're gonna have to come up with a different excuse this year because I mean this series is still kind of a pick 'em because you don't know exactly what's gonna happen. The Mavericks, which team's gonna show up, but I really do think the Mavericks will probably pull this series out. What do you guys think?
Not that I dislike the Clippers, but I actually want to see the Mavericks pull it out. Because I think the Clippers, they had a lot of hype surrounding them even last year, right? And I thought last year Paul George had a bad postseason, so of course he became the easy target along with Doc Rivers, right? Hence the reason Doc was let go. But the reason why I say I want to actually see him lose. Not so much see him lose, but I would like to see Dallas win. Let's put it that way. Only because I like the excitement that Luka brings to the game. And I think the Clippers, even if they move on beyond Dallas, they're going to, they've been exposed, I think. I don't think they're built for championship success. Paul George, obviously, is a great piece to have on your team along with Leonard. But beyond that, I don't know what direction they're going in. You got Patrick Beverly, who's a decent defender. But he can't do anything else. All right, I don't know. You got Reggie Jackson, who's decent, but I don't know what's going on with him. Then you got Morris, who I actually like. I like Morris, especially when he was with the Knicks, but he seems to be struggling. I think Zubac is playing decent for them. He's playing well, but I just don't know what direction that team is going in and who you could rely on to do anything other than Paul George and Kawhi. They just have a strange team. I think the way they're built isn't sustainable. That's why I would like to see Dallas win because of that unknown factor. You don't know which Dallas team is going to show up. Luka may go off, have one of those big nights and upset somebody. Who knows? So I think Dallas is just a little bit more exciting for me to see because I don't think either one of them are going to win the championship. So for me, Dallas is just more enjoyable to watch.
Whoever advances in the series come down to KP6. Which version shows up? Point blank, period. That's all I got to say about that series. If KP6 scored 20 or more, like he should be doing, they'll be the Clippers. If he's doing 10 points, 12 points, not showing up, having 2 rebounds, LA will advance to the next round. So in my eyes, what I've seen so far, it's all about KP6, what version shows up.
And it's funny you mention that, Theo, because for some reason, and I know they brought KP in there to be like this 1-2 combo with Luka, but they just don't seem to have that on the court chemistry to me. I see Luka out there more finding like Kleber and guys like that with those passes than he does KP. I don't know what it is, but those two just don't seem to gel as much as everybody would like for them to gel on the court.
You're gonna laugh. You know what I think that is? It may sound crazy, as I think Luka sees himself as a tough competitor, and when you look at KP, he might actually think of his own teammate as a soft guy because you don't see Luka backing down. You see him mixing it up with players. They talk, he talks, or something. Whereas KP shies away from the contact. Anytime he's hit, he's hurt and stuff. The other guys, whereas like even a guy like Kleber doesn't back down from people. So the guys that he seems to gravitate more towards are the guys that was in that's a little more tough and a little more rugged. And I guess he may not see KP as reliable as those guys.
I think that definitely hurt the chemistry, right? Because they brought in KP and KP was already hurt. So, his first introduction to him was him sitting on the bench clapping for him for most of the season or whatever that was, right? Because he was still coming back from the ACL injury when Dallas brought him in. So I think that hurt him, like the chemistry that is. And from there, it just never seemed like it really materialized. Like I don't really even see Luka looking for him on those pick and pops because we know at this point KP is not really looking to do any pick and roll. He's not looking to roll to the basket like you just said, Kanata. He's shying away from the contact. And I think a big part of that is I don't know if KP trusts his body anymore. Because you look at it, when he was on the Knicks, first came into the league, all the putback dunks and everything else, you don't see Porzingis looking to even attempt half of that stuff anymore.
He's not near the paint.
It's like he just became a completely different, even on the defensive end, right? He was a solid defender. Now he's a liability on the defensive end. Right? They're looking to put Porzingis in pick and rolls. Before you get him in a pick and roll, he could slide his feet decent enough for a big man, 7'3", and then he was a good paint protector, blocking shots. I don't see KP doing any of that anymore. And I think, like you said, Kenyatta, that's probably why Luka is not gravitating to him, because what is KP doing? Taking the same long distance threes that Luka takes. What is he doing out there?
He's like, I don't need me. And plus, I just think I think realistically, I could see Dallas. It's two teams. I could see Dallas going after a guy like Andre Drummond or something. And I could actually see Miami going after a guy like Andre Drummond too. Guys that's going to be out, because Drummond is a little more rugged. He'll get those rebounds. You can get those putback dunks, and he's going to be around the basket. Dallas doesn't have anybody around the basket. There's nobody even close to the basket. So they need somebody there. Looking at these other series, I think it was nice, but I think the Jazz proved why they were number one seed. I think Memphis is pretty much, they won their game and it was good. Mitchell came back, and I think it's pretty much going to be done with that. I think I will say this. I think Memphis is playing hard and playing tough. What do you guys think of that series?
Yeah, I think, like you said, they won their one game. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they, snuck another one in there and lost in 6, maybe 4-2. I wouldn't be shocked. But I had the Jazz, if y'all remember, I had the Jazz actually making the finals. Of course, depending on how Mitchell looked in his return, and he's looking, like he's healthy. So I had them making the finals against the Nets in a series that most people, unless you're a hardcore fan, don't really care to see. But yeah, I think Memphis, they were an exciting team. They made it further. They're kind of like the West Coast version of the Knicks in terms of they were exciting to watch. Probably wasn't expected to be where they are. They won a game similar to the Knicks. Now it's time for them to go home and work on who they evaluate, who they're going to keep around, who they're going to let walk, and go from there. I think they fall into that same category.
Memphis is heading in the right direction. They have a good backcourt to build around with Dillon and John Morant. Christian Allen is playing pretty off the bench. If Jaren Jackson could stay healthy, they'd be probably even more better. Because he always fired some kind of injury bug since he came to the league. But as far as Utah is concerned, Utah is playing great. And it's hard watching them. It's hard watching Donovan Mitchell when I was seeing him in uniform. I just it's I see him. I see his jersey in New York instead of Utah when I see him play. I can't go.
Yeah, I know.
I always do. I see him play. I know it says Utah, but my eye, it should say New York on it. But
you still seeing Donovan Mitchell from Westchester County? That's what it is. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, but that being said, they look like the number one seed in the West. Memphis is playing well. They're giving it A game, but Utah is just too much with Donovan on court. It's just too much for them. I'll give Memphis one more win, maybe. Because it's tough playing a young team like that when they are home. And it seems like they're a tough team in a row regardless, though. But Utah's playing great, man. They're very tough. So as long as Mitchell's there, they're gonna be all right.
Yeah. And what I would say the most competitive series, the Trailblazers and the Nuggets side 2-2. I think that's really a pick 'em. I think a lot of people underestimated the Nuggets. They thought when Jamal Murray went down that the team was kind of fold up. But we're seeing Aaron Gordon play better. Michael Porter, we know he's stepped up big time. Jokic is Jokic, and I gotta say he may be the MVP. Whatever, that might be his award. But they listen. The Nuggets are hanging in there, and then like we talked about earlier, Carmelo and CJ and those guys are knocking down shots. So this is kind of like a tough one to call.
Yeah, it's a strange series to me, that one, because it's like two teams where you don't know which, like for both teams, you don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes the series a little strange and competitive at the same time. Is both teams is just they're wild cards. With most other teams, you kind of sort of know what you're going to get, but you don't know what you're going to get from either one of these teams. There's some consistency there. You know, Damian Lillard, right, is going to hit those deep threes and go off of his 30. CJ is probably going to get you his 18, 20 or a little more, depending on, you know, how much he decides to shoot or whether Damian Lillard is hot. So there's some consistency there. But then beyond that, for Portland, you don't know what you're going to get. Some nights Carmelo has it. Some nights he doesn't. Some nights he's not as aggressive. Some nights Robert Covington is hitting the three ball. Then you got the point guard who won the dunk contest. Can't remember his name.
Simmons.
Simons, Anthony. Some nights he's going off. So they're a little strange team. And then on the Denver side, there's some consistency there with Jokic, right? You know what you're going to get from him. But then beyond that, you kind of sort of don't. Well, you got, I would say Michael Porter Jr. has shown some consistency. You know you're going to get, 18, 20 points at least from him, I would say. But then beyond him, those two, who else? From Denver on their side is going to go off.
Yeah.
Campazzo, right, may get you 12 points, 15 points occasionally. Is so many, wild cards to that series, but it has been entertaining, that series, because of it. So I'm just curious. I don't think either one of those teams, especially Denver with no Jamal Murray, I don't think either one of them are like title contenders. But they'll make it tough. Whoever wins that series, they'll win a game or two against, their next opponent.
Yeah, both teams are a hot team for sure. I think the addition of Austin Rivers for Denver was a very good pickup. He could be a spark plug. He shows the ability to take over a quarter or two quarters at best, for sure. So he ain't scared out there of the big stage, so to speak. And Portland is the same roster year in, year out, and just up and down. You get puzzles like, you guys have the talent, though, but just can't put together. And question remains: if Portland does get eliminated, do you keep the backcourt intact? It's time for a change, man. It's got to get bumped in the first round. But that being said, it's a very good series, very entertaining, high scoring games, and I like it for sure. But like I said, if you feel we're going to win, as far as Portland and Denver, you don't really know who's going to win. We don't know who's going to win. It's two evenly matched guys, and both teams are high teams. So
I say with Portland, if they get bumped in the first round, I could see them running it back maybe one last time. And the reason why I say that is the first guy who's going to take the fall, and maybe rightfully so, is Terry Stotts, right?
Yeah.
You get bumped in the first round, he's out. So that's the first thing they'll make is the coaching change. And then they'll get the last hurrah, so to speak, after the coaching change to try to see if it was the coach who was the reason for it. Potentially, that's assuming that Damian Lillard doesn't get frustrated enough, because I don't see CJ asking to be traded per se, but I could see Damian Lillard asking for a trade. So he may be frustrated enough at this point if they get bumped in the first round. He may not even want to wait to see if it was a Terry Stotts issue. He may ask out. Potentially. Of course, he's saying all the right things. I want to be with Portland forever, this and that. But we all know how that works. Yeah, I heard KD say he want to be with OKC forever, right? 2 teams later, right? Here he is, right? We heard Kyrie say, I want to return to Boston if you'll accept me. And so we know how that game works. Of course, Damian is saying all the right things, and I don't blame him. But if they get bumped in the first round, all those things he said goes out of the window. At some point, he's going to be looking out for him and his family and whatever he thinks is best, whether that's returning to Portland or leaving.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on off of basketball into baseball, just looking at the standings. So in American League East, I'm not really surprised that the Tampa Bay's in first. Boston is kind of surprising me. New York, listen, we could be doing better, but I like the record at least for now for 29 and 24. And everybody in the division's above 500 except for Baltimore, which is expected. I mean, right now, I think we haven't seen the best of the Yankees, but I'm not surprised that Tampa Bay is in first place. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm kind of, as a Yankee fan, I'm kind of happy where we are considering the way we started. We started, I would say, poor, where it was I was getting those. Here we go again with Stanton, and Stanton was playing decent, I would say, to start the season, but they had me a little scared. Here we go again with Judge, Stanton. Are they gonna curl up? So I'm excited where they are. Like you said, 29 and 24, considering that start is good. Tampa Bay, I'm not surprised to see them. They a team built around pitching, right?
Yeah.
So they're solid. Boston, somewhat surprising. I wouldn't have expected them to be as well as they are at 32 and 20. So I'm a bit surprised there. But overall, I would say in the American League East, it's kind of sort of what I expect with Tampa, Boston, and the Yankees as the top three. And then Chicago, the White Sox playing well. I'm not too surprised there. And then moving on, Oakland, right? I like Oakland.
Yeah, and they got
Houston, who's in second place in that division. I'm a little surprised there. To some degree, I know Houston is a solid team. I thought maybe they would be a little worse given the whole trash can thing, but overall, no big surprises. Let's put it that way.
I think the Cleveland Indians are a big surprise. They've been go wild, Cleveland Indians. But as far as you're concerned, Yankees always have some kind of issues with Stanton on DL for something. He's never gonna play at least 20 games straight without being hurt. Pitching right now up and down outside of Jericho. We lost
Kluber,
he's out for what, 8 weeks, so that's tough. And outside those two, our pitchers really up and down, really, man. With Domingo Jean,
Domingo Germán, he didn't see
and Montgomery. And we're trying to import young kid, Devi.
Devi. I know.
Cruz. I think it's
Devi.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, I like him right now. So we're trying to patch the team up right now to really get healthy right now. So I would say just stay the course. The season is still pretty much young. Stay close, until everybody comes back healthy and try to make a big run for first place into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think again, you guys are right on. Boston's a little surprising. I think they're getting a big year from Rafael Devers. I think he might be leading the league in home runs or something like that.
Good player, man.
Yeah, so he's up there. The White Sox, they've been kind of predicting the White Sox turning around for a couple of years now. So that's not too surprising. Oakland always manages to get it done. Oakland had one of the smallest payrolls, but they must have this hell of a scouting team because they put teams together and they just win.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Now, moving on to the National League, we got the first place Mets that have had so many injuries. I mean, they might be they might have the most injuries in the league. And again, they're stringing it together with different guys. Different guys are getting hits. And the pitching's been okay. You got good performance from guys. And Jake DeGrom, I mean, they're talking about he might break the record this year. They might have a sub-1 ERA for the season. So, I mean,
they've definitely been a surprising team, like you said. Given how they've been able to sustain and seeing them in first place, I'm a Yankees fan, but it's been exciting to see the Mets be in first place. And DeGrom, their pitching in general is great. DeGrom especially, guy is incredible. So I would say they're definitely a surprise in the National League. Padres as well, right? I know they went out, they spent a lot of money over
Yeah.
these last few seasons, but they've been a bit of a surprise to actually see the money they spent paying off. So I would say they're a bit of a surprise. Then outside of that, not too many surprises for me. The Dodgers, maybe. I think they're 31-22, decent record, but I think they'll probably, if I had to guess, overtake the Padres by season's end, barring any major injuries. But I would say the biggest surprise for me in the National League is definitely the Mets and Padres so far.
Yeah, it's always good to have both New York teams do well. And the Mets is doing pretty good being in first place for a period of time, especially when you're in first place without Lindor being the Lindor of old. So that's a good sign when you win a game without Lindor playing well. I guess offensively anyway, he's a very good defensive player.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, I'm on New York right now calling the baseball, man. Phillies have talent, so but they Jekyll High team as well, man. They got Didi and left-handed hitter. They got guys right now, Harper. They got players there in Philly, man. This got to put it together, man. Right now, Dodgers gonna be Dodgers. Dodgers not going nowhere.
Yeah.
They are the team to beat, man. Regardless who's hot, who's gonna play all the other team to beat, man. As far as AL or NL.
I mean, the National League Central looks like their teams are performing pretty well. You got the Cardinals at 30-23, the Cubs at 29-23, and Milwaukee at 28-25. So they look like they're going to be.
The Cubs playing good too. The Cubs, okay.
Yeah, Cubs are 29-23.
Nice.
So they're going to be pretty competitive down the stretch. I think you know what? I think Atlanta's surprising me a little bit that they're not doing as well as what people might have thought. The Braves, I thought they would have been doing a little better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but we still got a lot of season to go. I'm just happy. Like again, it's always great to see both the New York teams on top. Whatever when you're doing that. Mm-hmm. So here's a question. Just going back to basketball, thinking about it. If you look at the local teams, while we're talking about the local teams, we have the Knicks and the Nets, and this has been bouncing around. We've heard different people have this conversation. Which will be worse, the Knicks losing in the first round or the Nets not winning the finals or not making the finals?
I say the Nets not making the finals. Like if the Nets didn't bring in Harden, then maybe all right. But you have these three superstars there, barring any injuries, of course, major injuries to any one of them. Then of course everything changes. But given their three stars being relatively healthy, I say if the Nets don't at least make the finals, that's definitely a bigger disappointment than the Knicks getting bumped in the first round. The Knicks, I don't think we weren't expected to be there, coming into the season. The Nets, once they put that big three together, they immediately was supposedly championship contenders. So, and plus, I would say in terms of the Knicks, we're playing against, like Theo mentioned, we're playing against a different Hawks team than we faced in the regular season. I think Atlanta has more talent, the Hawks, than we do. So I wouldn't even be surprised at all if the Knicks get eliminated. We weren't supposed to be there. Get eliminated in the first round, and it's still I would say, a successful season for the Knicks. You don't make the finals for the Nets, not so much in terms of success.
Yeah, I'm keeping short. I agree with Reem and everything you said. I mean, they was talking chips before they got James Harden. Those had chips aspirations in Brooklyn before the Harden deal. Now they got Harden. They don't reach the finals. It's definitely on them, man. A big failure for sure. Right now, Milwaukee and Philly looks real tough right now. So I would say Brooklyn not making the finals is a bigger disappointment than the Knicks losing the first round.
I would agree with you, and even though I do think that one of the things that even in this, if they don't make the finals, that should be considered is that they only played 10 games together the whole year. So I do think that it's still the worst thing is them not making the finals. But I think some of that will be attributed to them not playing together the whole year. Because I don't think if they would have played let's say 42 games together, Philly wouldn't even be the number one seed. If they played the bulk of the game together, they would be playing a home game in the finals or something. So I think that will factor into it. But I still think they'll make it. I still think they'll make the finals. So that'll be interesting. As far as the Knicks, again, the expectations for the Knicks at the beginning of the season were no expectations. I think they were expected to finish 10th or something in the 10th in the East or something like that. So anything you get from the Knicks beyond that is gravy. I will say this: going into next year, that expectation is going to change. So we'll probably have a different conversation about that next year with the Knicks. So with all of the stuff we got going on in the world, I'm hearing like a lot of stuff about the Olympics and people boycotting it or whether there should be Olympics or something. What do you guys think of that whole thing as far as should there be an Olympics? Should it be boycotted? Should we go? Or how do you think that's going to turn out?
Get ready for the 2024 Olympics. I say just skip it. I think it's still too risky to play. It's obviously gotten better than where we were this time last year, but I still think it's a bit risky to go over there and have players from all around the world coming together. And obviously there would be extensive testing and stuff like that, I would like to believe, to try to, make it as safe as possible. But I still think it's a bit too risky. I say they just need to skip it. Plus, I don't think it's supposed to be in Japan, right? From my understanding, I know Japan has started getting really bad over there. I don't know where they are now in terms of the pandemic, but I think it's just too much going on. Just skip it and get ready for 2024, I say.
Yeah, I agree, man. Don't play, man. 2024, man, or 2025. This shit coming up, don't need, man. Too risky. It's not worth it, man. No.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think it's unfortunate. I think that it probably should be one of the things, or it shouldn't be like a thing that's like a big major thing to not have it. I know they postponed it a year, or postponed it but due to some of like the different political landscape issues they're having on top of COVID and stuff, I don't think it would be a big deal not to have it. But the craziest thing is, I think it's probably going to end up happening. And I think the United States will participate, and it's sad. It has nothing to do with the sports or anything athlete. More so things like the sponsors and all the money involved in it.
Plus, I don't think Japan, right? They weren't at this point. They weren't even excited to have it. At least the people over there weren't excited about it. They're against it, right? Most of them, from my understanding. So, like you said, it's a lot of money involved, though. So. Of course, we know money drives decisions.
I mean, I've seen a thing on the Olympics and the countries that have the Olympics. Typically, other than big countries with a lot of money, the Olympics is actually a situation where it may or may not help the Olympics. I've seen like a whole chronicle thing on the Barcelona Olympics where they had to go out and build all these fields and make all of this stuff to accommodate the Olympics. But when they went back and they looked, a lot of these fields, like the soccer players and different people played on, are now like just filled up with grass and stuff. So they never were actually utilized after the Olympics. And they go out and they build these arenas and different things. And if the country doesn't make money, it's kind of a huge expenditure if you don't already have the infrastructure to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you know who's hosting or supposed to host the 2024 Olympics?
Yeah, who is the host of that?
Because that's another thing, right? Is I'm sure initially, pre-COVID, Japan was excited, probably, from my understanding, to have it, right?
Oh wow, they would never boycott that one. That one's going to be in Paris, so I'm pretty much sure that's definitely going to happen.
So I mean, it's one of those things from Japan's perspective. Like, when is their next opportunity, right? Because the Olympics is only every 4 years. You miss it this time. When is their next opportunity to host again? So that may factor into Japan, like, pushing to try to have it. But I think they need to skip it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Olympics, I think they do like the They do like either 2 or 3 Olympics ahead. So I think after the 2024, I don't know if they have the 2028 yet. They may not have that yet. So I don't know. Listen, would you want to have it? Then 2028. Oh wow, I think that's already finalized too.
See, that's the thing is, yeah, it's one of those things where they plan it, quite a bit ahead. Because like you said, a lot of these countries don't necessarily have the infrastructure. Some do, a lot of them don't. So they plan ahead so that these countries can start building the infrastructure if they need to. You can't throw up all these stadiums in a year,
Well, you figure there's no way in 2028 is giving up because it's in Los Angeles.
No, I don't see that one moving.
Yeah,
I see the United States wanting to hold that one here.
Yeah,
so I don't see that one changing. So at that point, if you're Japan, that's probably why the original plan was, all right, we'll just postpone it a year, right, to play it safe. Now, if you don't have it this year, when do you get a chance to host? So,
I mean, I'm just looking through it. It's kind of insane because they even have 2032 is already in Brisbane, Australia. So, like you said, how far? How
now,
far?
yeah, we're already 11 years out.
Yeah. So it looks like we have all the way to 2032. So their next opportunity wouldn't be till 2036. Yeah, no.
15 years from now. So if you're Japan, that may drive some of your decision too to try to make it happen somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't see them passing.
Nobody cares about it's not a big thing to hold the Winter Olympics, right? Which is every 2 years or whatever it is. Nobody really cares about that per se in terms of I'm gonna hold it in my country their next opportunity being 15 years from now. It's unfortunate for them, but I think there's bigger issues going on in the world for that to be the main concern right now.
Yeah, I think what's in with that for safety reasons they're gonna have it, but they probably shouldn't. So Theo brought up an interesting point that Robert Ory said he deserves a documentary. I mean, if you need when I first read it, Theo, I had to laugh because was it based on I go to teams where it has great players and I win championships? I mean, I know I can't say that he hasn't contributed, but I don't think in any one of those. Maybe Houston might have been his biggest contribution. I mean, what is his documentaries based on having rings or something? Or I couldn't even understand why we've been giving Robert Ory a documentary.
Yeah, I didn't see the quote, but I mean, unless it's talking about unless he's doing a tell-all or something. I don't see why anybody, like you said, I would say he's been a contributor to these different teams. Definitely the whole Big Shot Bob thing. I think he's hit some big shots in his career. But to have a documentary, Steve Kerr hit some big shots in his career. Should he have a documentary? Or John Paxson, right? He has some big shots. So, I mean, based on what? I don't know what the documentary would be about. Unless he's given a tell-all behind the scenes about what it's like to be with David Robinson and Tim Duncan.
And Tim Duncan and
people may tune in.
Elijah Wan. He might be able to make that documentary. I got to play with the best big men of all times. I played with Shaq Duncan and Elijah Wan.
Yeah, unless it's a documentary about snitching, about behind the scenes type of stuff. I don't know what would it be about. And again, that's not to diminish. He has hit some big shots, but I just rattled off 2 guys, who hit big shots as well and got rings, right? Steve Kerr and Paxson. Should they have documentaries? So I don't know what it would be based on, but I'm interested.
Robert Ory had hit more big shots than Steve Kerr and other guy combined, honestly, if you think about it.
Yeah, he probably has. Yeah, absolutely.
Houston, Lakers, and Spurs.
Yeah.
Not saying that I would tune into it on the first day it comes out, but I'll be watching on the weekend or something like that if they do go through it, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, listen, I hear what you're saying. You know, he do have 7 rings. He's been around the game for a long period of time. And maybe he has some good intel what it is to pay for these teams while going to quest to win a championship. So you never know what he has to offer. You never know. I mean,
Yeah,
why not, man? It can't hurt that, Sean.
yeah. The
I would
name of it
definitely
should be
watch
called
it.
Carried. Robert Ory carried because the dude been getting carried his whole career. You know, I can't remember a time where I've ever said, you know what, Robert Ory is a star. Forget about superstar, all-star. Have you ever said ever Robert Ory is a star, has star potential? But the fact that he's confident enough to want to have one, then obviously that means he has, or at least feels he has something to say. So at the very least, I would tune in just for that, just see what he wants. I mean, what does he have to get off his chest?
I think Theo's right. He might have some insight on what it is to be on great teams because he's won championships.
I would agree.
If you look at the players he's played with, he can't deny that he's played with some of the best players ever. I mean, he can definitely attribute and say, listen, or maybe talk about what it takes for those guys to be as great as they are, the work ethic, something like that. I could see him doing. But if it's about him specifically, you know, what he does and how he prepares, I mean, you got a shooting machine and you take shots, whatever. But I think I would watch it because it's basketball. Like you said, it's not one of those things where I wouldn't watch it. It probably depends on what the perspective is or something. But I would definitely watch it.
Now, if you say he was directing the documentary, I might have been a little more intrigued.
He's directing the Olajuwon story.
Yeah, something like that maybe.
The craziest thing is if you think about it, Olajuwon and David Robinson don't have Tim Duncan. They don't have they don't have them. Shaq and Kobe do, you know, but none of those guys have them. So
KG got one coming on the way.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that.
Now, I'm looking at Ory's career stats. His best numbers were with the Houston Rockets. His best scoring season was him averaging 12 points. That was his best scoring season. And that's what he was known for, right? Shooting. So it's not like he had monster rebounding numbers and everything else, assist numbers. His biggest scoring season in his career was 1995, averaging 12 points even in 37 minutes.
He might have.
I don't know what he has to talk about other than, you know, like you said, he does have intel, right?
Yeah,
playing with superstars and everything like that. And he has hit some big shots over his career, but it can't be entirely focused on his career.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that could potentially have those or something like. I'm sure if you go by that, I mean, I would watch Manu Ginobili's before I watched his. Manu Ginobili had one.
Latrell Sprewell, his would be more interesting, right? The whole would let up to the I can't feed my family with $40 million or whatever that was, maybe more interesting.
I mean,
Latrell Sprewell story.
Yeah, it's a lot more stories, but I think he's reaching. But I guess you know what happens when you got millions of dollars. If he pays for it, we'll see it because he got enough money to pay for it to have it made. So,
yeah, and I wouldn't mind hearing what he has to say about playing, just in general, right? Because obviously the guy, he's had a long career. He's done a lot of things that most people haven't done, right? For one, the guy made the league, right? And he had he was the number 11th pick overall. He made the league. He had a long, successful career. He never had big numbers, but he was always around on the team, right? He always, for the most part, contributed.
Yeah, he played.
So it's not like he was one of those guys that was just on the bench collecting rings. Some of them maybe, but he did have roles in those rings, most of them that he won. Yeah. So from that perspective, I would like to hear what he has to say. I just don't know about assuming it's all about his career. I don't know how long. If it's, is it a short documentary?
I
Or
think how we sum up Robert Ory is we send Robert Ory a message and tell him to holler at Netflix. They seem to put out all types of stuff, so they might take the bait on that. The Robert
Right.
Ory, you get the Robert Ory story or something.
and the thing is, that besides basketball, he may have done things off the court, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
worth talking about. So that's another thing.
yeah.
Where he could have contributed to, like, went back to his community and did things there. So that
Yeah.
would be, good to hear. So it's not that I'm completely disinterested, but if it's solely based on his NBA career, I don't know how much he has to talk about from that perspective, unless he's talking about other players and highlighting what they've done, because he can't just be highlighting himself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, lastly, we seen this week the way players are getting treated on the court or something like that. Between Trey Young getting spit at in the Garden, Russell Westbrook getting the popcorn dumped on his head. I mean, I think that like a lot of fans are overextending their seats. I think a lot of people don't understand. You buy a seat to watch a game to watch a player play. That doesn't give you the right to listen to do anything you want to because you're in a stadium. I mean, and then we had I believe it was John Morant's parents in Utah. So what do you guys think of that whole thing with the way the fans are treating these players and parents and different stuff?
Yeah, I think it's unacceptable. And I don't think there's any place in the game for that. Like, being a Knicks fan, um, like hearing the Trey Young is balding chants and stuff like that, fine, right? And hearing like the Atlanta Hawks fans make fun of the whole Knicks mantra, we here and this and that. I think that's perfectly fine. But when you start crossing the line and spitting and throwing things and going into racial things, like supposedly what happened with John Morant's parents, I think that's completely crossing the line. And I think the team so far, at least from what we've heard, they seem to have responded well in terms of banning the fans from the stadiums, at least indefinitely. Who knows if that's a permanent ban or. But I think, yeah, there's no place for that. I think the fans, even without COVID, spitting on somebody, that's just going a bit too far. And I think some fans, they've gotten a bit too comfortable with doing certain things. And you got to remember that these guys and their families are people too. So sitting there hounding, let's say, John Morant, right? His parents in the stands sitting there hounding my kid is one thing, but calling me all type of racial slurs and stuff like that, that's another. That goes beyond the sport to me. And once you start going beyond the sport, then that's a problem. Anything on the court in terms of heckling, fine, it's fair game, right? In terms of taunting, right? Trey Young doesn't like birds, so if you want to go that route with him and this and that, that's within the realm of the game, so to speak. But I think there's no place for the whole popcorn spitting and racial stuff. I think that's going a bit too far. And I also, in addition to that, I think the league needs to, like right now, it's reactionary. When it happens, they respond. I think the league needs to do something to try to ensure that it doesn't happen, meaning whether that's because you can't prevent somebody once they get in the seats. There's no way to completely prevent some knucklehead from doing something. But I think the league, at the very least, needs to send out like warnings to the fans. Maybe have them hanging up in the stands in the stadium as reminders on how to conduct yourself and that type of thing. They have to try to do something that's proactive instead of reactive.
The incident in New York deserves a lifetime ban to me. Something that happened in D.C. and in Utah deserves maybe a year ban. I just leave it at that. We all know it's very disgusting what happened. What happened in New York was very embarrassing and disturbing. What happened. We don't do that, man. We win or we lose, but you know what I'm saying. let's lose like men and win like men. When it comes to the fans concern, we gotta do better than that, man. Because right now we're getting a bad reputation in New York as far as any sport for being out of control and doing dumb things, man. With that being said, the individuals with the New York incident, lifetime ban, man, without question for sure. I just leave it at that.
Yeah, when you look at people, I mean, we've seen these things escalate out of control, going back to the Ron Artest, Indiana, Detroit thing. So we know where this can potentially go. Even watching the video was him. Russell Westbrook had to be restrained from trying to go up in the stands or trying to confront the guy. So historically, we've seen these things go wrong where players want to get involved or things escalate. So again, like you said, Theo and Kareem said, when you look at it, we should have like different signs up for what's expected of a fan, and we should just know that we are fans. We come to watch these guys play and to conduct ourselves in a manner as you should, as you would conduct yourself anyway outside of a stadium. So right now the NBA is taking different action on it. It was good to see that they didn't wait and go into these long, drawn-out investigations like they usually go to. But it'll be interesting what they do in the future because I definitely don't see it stopping. I mean, there's places like the Philadelphia Eagles actually have a jail in the stadium where people get that much out of hand where they have to arrest people and detain them inside of the stadium. So
yeah.
We've seen this stuff happen throughout sports, and hopefully they can clean it up or get it to a point where people are deterred from doing that type of stuff. But guys, again, it's great having show with you guys. Any last words, Reem?
I mean, my Knicks are down 3-1. I still think we got a fighting chance. Hopefully, Julius Randle comes out, performs the way we know he can. I know I said some things where I was down on him a bit, but he's still a Knick. He's still our best player. We need him to perform. Same with RJ. Let's go Knicks.
Deal.
I will say rest in peace to Mark Eaton, Hall of Famer. One-time All-Star, 2 times Defensive Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time All-First-Team Defense. Led leading blocks 4 times. 4 times in his career, he averaged 4 blocks per game, which sounds crazy. Yeah. He even had 1 year where he averaged 5 blocks per game. Wow. So that's crazy, man. So, rest in peace to big Mark Eaton, man.
And for me, I'm a Yankee fan, and it's great to see the Yankees and the Mets when both, like you guys said, when they're both doing well. As a Yankee fan, we still got to keep an eye on Jake DeGrom. I mean, he might break the record. Have a sub 1 ERA for a full season. So that'll be something that hadn't been done. But again, thank you guys for listening. Love talking to you guys. Love talking sports with you guys. Till next week.